My daughter pressed the ticket into my hand with a brightness that always felt rehearsed. "We took Ocean View Cabins," Liana said. "Yours is by the engine room. Don't be upset. I am 72 years old and I have lived long enough to recognize when someone thinks they are being clever." Liana tilted her head, waiting for me to flinch. I didn't. I just smiled, not because I accepted it, but because I finally understood the intention behind it. She wanted me tucked away out of sight, like luggage. Michael stood a few steps behind her, pretending to check his phone. He never stepped between us, not when she was like this. He had learned the cost of doing so years ago. That was the only cabin left, I asked. Liana shrugged too quickly. Well, it was the only one left after I booked the good ones for us. "You don't need a window anyway. You go to bed early." Her voice carried just far enough for the people in line to hear. She wanted that. The performance always mattered more than the truth. I folded the ticket and slipped it into my pocket. "Thank you for thinking of me." She blinked, unsure how to respond to kindness she hadn't expected. "Well, yes, of course." We moved forward in the boarding line. Port of Charleston buzzed around us, families dragging suitcases, announcements echoing from faraway speakers, but all of it blurred behind the quiet wait between us. Liana kept adjusting her hair, checking angles on her front-facing camera, tugging at her blouse as if every stranger were a critic. "You should try smiling," she whispered, without looking at me. "You always look nervous in photos." "I am not nervous," I said. She frowned, annoyed that I had not taken the bait. A family behind us murmured about their balcony suite, and Liana straightened with sudden pride. "That's what we booked too," she said loudly, angling her body so they would notice her. "I made sure my family has the best." I stayed quiet. The best, apparently, did not include me. We were only a few yards from the gangway when I felt a shift in the air behind us. Footsteps, steady, purposeful, cut through the chaos. A few passengers turned. Some moved aside. "Mrs. Marlowe." The voice was firm and warm, carrying a tone I had not heard directed at me in years. Captain Rafael Ortiz stepped through the crowd as if he knew exactly where to find me. His uniform was crisp, his expression unmistakably respectful. He walked right past Liana, past Michael, past everyone else, until he stood directly in front of me. "Welcome aboard," he said. "We've been waiting for you." People around us paused mid-conversation. A couple of teenagers straightened. A man with a camera lowered it. Liana's mouth stayed open in the shape of a smile she had forgotten to finish. For me, I managed. "Yes, ma'am," Captain Ortiz replied. "If you would follow me, I'll take you to your accommodations." Liana stepped forward, her voice high and thin. "There must be a mistake. My mother is in an interior cabin." Captain Ortiz didn't even look at her. "Your mother's arrangements were updated earlier this morning." I felt something loosen in my chest, something I had held tightly for far too many years. I had no idea what was waiting for me beyond that gangway. But for the first time in a very long time, it was something meant for me. I adjusted the strap of my bag and followed the captain as the line parted around us. Behind me, I could hear Liana whispering frantically to Michael, her voice small and unsettled. And just like that, the trip she thought she controlled began to slip out of her hands. The call came on a Tuesday morning, one of those warm Charleston days when the air felt thick enough to fold. I was sorting through a stack of old recipe cards when my phone buzzed with Liana's name. "Hi, Mom," she said, breathless, as if she were already in the middle of something more important. "I just finished booking all the cabins for the cruise." "Everything is set." "That's good," I said. "Did you choose our rooms?" "I chose yours," she corrected. "You're in an interior cabin. No windows, but it's fine. Nothing else was left." Her tone made it sound like she was offering me a place to sleep on her couch, not on a 10-day family vacation I had helped pay for. "No balcony?" I asked gently. "No, Mom," she said, exhaling sharply. We took the last Ocean View rooms earlier. It was a rush sale. You know how it is. Besides, you go to bed early, you won't even notice. There it was again, that soft kind of condescension she had perfected over 4 decades. I pressed my fingers against the countertop to steady myself. I see, I said. Thank you for letting me know, she continued as if she hadn't heard me. Just make sure you pack light. Your cabin is small, so no big suitcases. And please don't bring that floral tote. It doesn't go with cruise attire. The last sentence hung between us like a quiet slap. I'll figure it out, I said. Good, she replied. I have a meeting in 5 minutes. I'll text you the packing list later. She hung up before I could say goodbye. I stood in my kitchen for a long time, the silence settling around me. The house I had lived in for over 40 years felt tighter than usual. My mother's rocking chair sat in the corner, where the morning light touched the armrest. The cobblestone street outside held the distant sound of tourists passing, their voices drifting like echoes of a world that wasn't mine anymore. I remembered when disagreements between Liana and me were about curfews, not control. When she cried for my attention instead of dodging it. When she called me Mommy instead of Mom, spoken in that clipped tone that carried more distance than respect. My phone rang again, this time Michael. Hey, Mama, he said, voice warm, unhurried. Liana told me about the cruise cabins. You okay? I hesitated. She said nothing else was left. I do not want to be trouble. You're never trouble, he said quickly. And that's not exactly what happened. I felt my breath catch. What do you mean? She switched your room after she upgraded hers, he said quietly. She didn't want you next to her suite for the pictures she's planning. I pressed the phone closer to my ear. Michael, are you sure? Yeah. She told Dad's side of the family she needed the balcony for content. I'm sorry, Mama. I closed my eyes. Thank you for telling me. I want you to stay with me the night before we leave, he said. I'll drive you to the port. It'll be easier. That's kind of you, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. She's been making decisions by herself lately, he added carefully. Just keep me updated on anything she asks you to sign. Anything at all. The concern in his voice reached a place inside me I had ignored for too long. All right, I whispered. When we hung up, the house felt different. Not heavier, sharper, as if the edges of every memory had suddenly become clearer. I placed the recipe cards back in their box and looked out toward the marsh, where the waterline caught a soft flicker of afternoon light. 2 weeks before the cruise, and already the ground beneath this family trip was shifting. I just hadn't realized yet how much of it she had rearranged without telling me. I spent the rest of that afternoon moving slowly through my house, touching things I had not reached for in years: my husband's old toolbox, the faded photo from our wedding day, the wooden frame Michael made in elementary school. I had raised both of my children in this home long before Liana decided she was too refined to call Charleston her hometown. My husband died when I was 34. 1 car accident, 1 police officer at my door, 1 sentence that cracked the world open. I remember holding Liana on my lap while she sobbed into my blouse, her thin arms clinging to me as if grief could swallow her whole. Michael was too young to understand, but I saw fear in his eyes that never fully went away. For years, everything I did was for them. 2 children and 1 income. I worked long shifts at the library, then came home and tried to keep life steady enough that they would not feel every tremor I felt. Michael responded with softness. He grew into my shadow, following me from room to room, asking if I needed help. Liana responded differently. Every bit of attention I gave her brother sparked something mean in her eyes, a flicker I first noticed when she was 13. He gets away with everything she had, hissed once, slamming her bedroom door. You act like he's special. He is special, I'd said gently, and so are you. She had looked back at me, then really looked, and for a moment I saw something fragile, something afraid. Then it hardened. She became a teenager who sought approval outside our home, who compared herself to every girl in her class, who chased praise like it was oxygen. By adulthood, that need had turned into something sharper. Liana built her life the way other people build a stage. Every restaurant she chose was somewhere she could be seen. Every conversation was an opportunity to mention a promotion, a vacation, a person who admired her. And whenever I stood beside her, I felt like a backdrop, something to complete a picture she had curated. "Smile, Mom," she would whisper, before snapping a photo. "Not too big. It makes your eyes look tired." Or, "Stand over here. That wall is more flattering." She never spoke with cruelty, not directly, but every correction chipped at something inside me, and I let it. Because I thought mothers were supposed to absorb these things. I sat now at my dining table, listening to the ceiling fan click softly above me. I could feel the weight of years settling on my shoulders. The exhaustion was not physical. It was the exhaustion of being adjusted, directed, and distilled into whatever version of Mother Liana needed for her world to look perfect. 2 weeks earlier, she had called the cruise a gift, something meaningful. She'd said, a chance for us to reconnect. But each passing hour made it clearer that she did not want connection. She wanted choreography. She wanted control. And I suspected this trip was not about honoring our family, it was about showcasing one. I closed my eyes and pressed my hands together on the table. The quiet in the house stretched around me, familiar, but heavy. I could not shake the feeling that the cruise was less a celebration and more another performance I had been assigned a role in. By the time we reached the main entrance of the port, Liana had already switched into performance mode. She angled her phone toward the ship behind us, lifted her chin, and spoke in that bright, polished voice she only used when she knew people were watching. 10 days, 5 islands, she said to her followers. And our suite has the perfect balcony view. I made sure of that. She placed a hand on Michael's shoulder and pulled him into the frame without asking. He offered a strained smile, the kind he used when he wanted to avoid conflict. She didn't notice. She never noticed. "Mom, come closer," Liana ordered. "But stand a little behind me, yes, right there. I want the lighting on my face." I stepped where she pointed. She snapped several photos without looking at me once, then checked her screen with a satisfied nod. A group of her friends appeared near the check-in lane, 3 women dressed in matching pastel resort outfits. They squealed when they saw her. "Liana." "There you are." She hurried to meet them, arms wide, voice louder than before. "Girls, you made it. Wait until you see our suite. It is enormous." One of them glanced at me politely. "Is your mother joining you too?" "She is," Liana said, waving a dismissive hand. "But she doesn't need a view. She sleeps early anyway." The laugh that followed wasn't cruel, just thoughtless. But the words hit like pebbles thrown from too close a distance, small enough to seem harmless, sharp enough to sting. I did not interrupt. I had learned long ago that any challenge to her storyline only made her double down. Michael drifted to my side. "You okay, Mama?" "I am fine," I said, though my throat felt tight. The boarding lines shuffled forward. The terminal noise grew louder. Rollaway suitcases, excited chatter announcements echoing. Liana's friends circled her like bright birds, praising her planning, admiring her hair, asking about excursions she had chosen. "Mom will stick with the simple activities," Liana said. "She likes quiet things." "I like whatever I choose," I murmured beneath my breath, but she didn't hear me. As we approached the security checkpoint, a young crew member in a Navy uniform glanced up. He froze for a moment, then broke into a startled smile. "Mrs. Marlowe." I blinked. "Yes, it's really you," he said, stepping closer. "You ran the downtown literacy program years ago. You helped my little sister get her reading level up. I never forgot that." His sincerity took me by surprise. "Oh, I remember that group. How is she doing now?" She teaches second grade, he said proudly. She always said you changed her life. A soft warmth spread inside my chest. Unexpected steady. Before I could reply, the young man lowered his voice. I'm glad you're here, he said. Really glad. He gave me a small nod and moved back to his station. I felt Michael watching me, waiting for an explanation. Liana was still surrounded by her friends, laughing loudly, unaware of anything happening outside her spotlight. I stepped forward in the line, the young man's words echoing behind me. He was glad I was here. Relieved even. It was the first moment that made me wonder just how many things on this trip might not be what they seemed. Captain Rafael Ortiz walked with the kind of confidence that made people step aside without thinking. I followed him through the boarding lane, my bag still tucked under my arm, my heart beating harder than it should have for a woman who had only expected to walk to an interior cabin near the engine room. Captain Liana called sharply behind us, heels tapping too quickly against the floor. There must be some misunderstanding. My mother isn't on any special list. He did not slow down. There is no misunderstanding, Ms. Marlowe. Her face twitched at being dismissed so easily. We reached a private elevator guarded by a uniformed attendant. Captain Ortiz nodded to him. The doors opened immediately. After you, Mrs. Marlowe, he said. I hesitated. Captain, where are we going? He smiled gently. To your accommodations. Liana pushed forward. Then I'm coming too. I need to make sure everything is correct. The attendant stepped in front of her. I am sorry, ma'am. Authorized guests only. Authorized. She is my mother. Captain Ortiz's voice was calm but immovable, and her arrangements were made directly through our executive office. If you have questions, you may bring them to guest services. Liana's jaw tightened. Her cheeks flushed a bright, dangerous red. Michael appeared behind her and touched her arm. Liana, just let them handle it. She shook him off. No, this is ridiculous. The elevator doors began to close. The last thing I saw was Liana's expression twisting into something I had not seen since she was 13, fear disguised as fury. Inside the elevator, the captain pressed a button marked for a deck number much higher than I expected. My daughter is concerned, I said carefully. She will be fine, he replied. The elevator hummed upward. I held on to the handrail. Captain, I don't understand. My daughter told me all the good cabins were taken. He gave a soft exhale, almost amused. That is not accurate, ma'am. When the doors opened, we stepped into a quiet hallway, carpeted in a deep navy blue. A steward waited at the far end, hands behind his back, posture straight. This way, Captain Ortiz said. I followed until he stopped at a door with a plaque I had only seen in brochures, VIP Grand Suite. A tremor moved through me. Captain, this cannot be right. I did not pay for this. He turned to face me fully. His expression shifted, no longer formal, but personal. Mrs. Marlowe, he said, years ago you helped a young woman who came to your library after her family lost their home. You secured book vouchers for her siblings and contacted a local charity so they could receive assistance. Her name was Teresa Vaughn. The name hit me like a warm memory. Teresa. She must be in her 30s now. She is, he confirmed. She is also the senior executive over guest experience for this cruise line. When she saw your name on this manifest, she sent a direct order to upgrade you immediately. My breath caught. I only helped her fill out a few forms. She said you were the first adult who ever listened to her, the captain said quietly. She never forgot. He placed the keycard in my hand. This suite is yours for the entire voyage. No charge, no catch. I looked down at the card, sleek, gold-edged, heavier than the others, and felt something inside me shift. Respect, yes, but something else, too. A recognition I had not felt in years. The steward opened the door. I saw only a glimpse, a soft glow of warm lights, a glimpse of a balcony wider than my living room, but it was enough to make my throat tighten. "Captain," I said, struggling for steady breath. "This is too much." "It is what you deserve," he replied. Steps echoed behind us. Liana had managed to reach the hallway. Her eyes went wide when she saw the suite. "Mom, what is this? They upgraded you." Captain Ortiz turned politely. "Your mother's arrangements were finalized by Senior Command. If you need assistance with your own cabin guest services, we'll be happy to help." Liana looked at me as if the floor had shifted under her, not angry now, uneasy, calculating, shaken. "This was not a mistake?" she asked. "No," the captain said. "It was never a mistake." She stood frozen, her certainty crumbling at the edges. I stepped into the suite, and the door closed softly between us. I had barely set my bag down when the suite door clicked open again. Liana stormed inside without knocking her eyes wide, and sharp, her breath rising in furious bursts. "Explain this," she demanded. "Right now, I was about to call you," I said softly. "But the captain already spoke to you, didn't he?" "Do not play innocent with me," she snapped. "You planned this. You somehow got yourself upgraded to make me look ridiculous." I kept my hands folded in front of me. "I did not plan anything." "Oh, please." She stepped closer, voice rising. "You expect me to believe they just gave you the best suite on the ship. Why would they do that for you?" The emphasis was a blade. She did not even try to hide it. "Because someone remembered something I did a long time ago," I said. "That is all." "That is all," she repeated, laughing without humor. "You barely leave Charleston. You have not worked in over 10 years. What could you have possibly done to deserve this?" Her hand swept across the room like she was indicting it as evidence. I stayed quiet. Silence was the one thing I still owned. She stepped even closer. "I am your daughter. I should have known. You should have told me." "You never asked," I replied. Her face flickered anger, disbelief, something like fear, but she blinked it away. "I will fix this," she said. "I will talk to the captain." Clearly there was a mistake. "No mistake," Michael's voice said behind her. We both turned. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, his jaw set the same way his father's used to when he meant every word he said. "Liana, enough," he said. She rounded on him immediately. "Do not tell me what to do. I am telling you to stop," he said, stepping forward. "You have embarrassed Mom since we got here. You humiliated her with that cabin assignment. Now you are angry because something good happened to her." "That is not what this is about." "Then what is it about?" he asked. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her chin trembled before she forced it still. "This is not fair," she finally said. "I planned this whole trip. I paid for everything. I did all the work. And now she gets this. After everything I do." "You did not plan this trip for her," Michael said quietly. "You planned it for yourself." Her eyes snapped to me, accusing, wounded, desperate. "Mom," she said, voice cracking in a way she could not disguise. "You must have asked for this. Tell him you did. Tell him." I took a slow breath. "I did not ask for anything." She stared at me as if she did not recognize me, as if the ground beneath her had tilted and no one had warned her. "You always make me the villain," she whispered. I shook my head. "I have never said that." "You do not have to," she said. "Everyone sees it now." She looked at Michael, then at the suite again, her expression tightening into something brittle. "You cannot stay here," she said. "This is ridiculous. It makes us look—" Liana, Michael cut in. "It is done. Let it go." She turned away, shoulders, stiff breath, uneven. For one brief moment, I saw not the polished woman who commanded every room, but the fragile girl who used to check her reflection in every window, terrified of being overlooked. She walked out without another word. Michael exhaled. "I am sorry, Mama. She should not talk to you that way." I nodded. "Thank you." He hesitated. There is more you should know, but not yet. I looked at him surprised. Something in his voice carried a weight I had not heard before, an edge that told me this upgrade was not the only thing upsetting the balance in our family. He squeezed my hand gently and left the room, closing the door behind him. After Michael left, the quiet of the suite felt too sharp, as if silence had grown edges. I sat on the edge of the sofa and let the truth settle inside my chest. I had been afraid of my own daughter for years, not for my safety, but for my dignity. Liana had a way of shrinking me in front of others so smoothly that even I questioned whether I deserved to stand up straight. It had not started recently. It had followed me like a shadow. I remembered a charity gala in Charleston 5 years earlier, the kind where everyone tried too hard to look effortless. I had worn a navy dress I loved, one I had stitched small alterations into myself. When I stepped out of the car, Liana glanced at me and whispered, "Did you not think to choose something modern that looks grandmotherly?" I had laughed it off, pretending the words did not land. But later that night, as donors and board members circled the reception hall, she placed a hand on my arm and said loudly, "My mom gets nervous at events like this. Small rooms overwhelm her. Just give her space." People had nodded kindly. I had smiled weakly, and inside something had folded in on itself. Another memory surfaced: the neighborhood block party 2 summers ago. I had brought a peach cobbler I worked on all morning. Before I even reached the serving table, Liana leaned in and whispered, "Please let me carry it. The dish looks old. It does not match the setup." When someone complimented the dessert later, she said, "Oh, that. It is my mom's recipe. I had to adjust it so it would not be too sweet." I had said nothing. I thought that was what keeping peace meant. I thought letting things slide made me gracious. But the truth was simpler. I had been afraid that if I pushed back, I would lose her completely. A single mother learns early how fragile family can be. A faint rumble vibrated through the ship, and thunder echoed somewhere across the sky. I walked to the balcony door. Dark clouds gathered over the horizon, thick and low, moving toward us with purpose. The wind brushed against the glass, carrying the scent of rain before the first drop even fell. The weather report had mentioned a tropical storm forming, but this felt different, like something building that could not be stopped. I wrapped my arms around myself. The suite felt too grand for my smallness, too generous for the way I had been taught to take up as little space as possible. A knock at the door startled me. I thought it might be Liana returning for another confrontation, but no one called my name. No voice filled the hallway, just the soft reminder that I was not alone here, not invisible, not an afterthought. I did not open it. Instead, I stepped back steadier now than I had been in years. My daughter had pushed and pressed and shaped me into the version of a mother she wanted. Quiet, agreeable, easy to put in the corner of a photograph. I had let it happen because loving her felt like duty, and duty had become survival. But something in me cracked when that elevator door closed on her earlier, something old and patient, something tired of bending. The thunder rolled again, louder this time, and I felt a strange calm settle in. This time, I was not planning to let anything slide. The announcement for the captain's welcome dinner echoed through the hallway just as I finished fastening the clasp of my necklace. I hesitated before the mirror. I looked like myself, older, yes, but steady. There was no performance in my reflection. No need to angle my face for a camera. Just me. A soft knock sounded. When I opened the door, a young steward stood there with a small tablet pressed to his chest. "Mrs. Marlowe, I'm here to escort you to your reserved table." "Reserved," I repeated. "Yes, ma'am." "Captain's instructions." I followed him through the corridor, my steps slow but certain. As we entered the dining hall, a hush of warmth drifted through the air, silverware tapping quiet conversations, glasses clinking. The room glowed under soft lights. Heads turned. "Good evening, Mrs. Marlowe," someone said near the entrance. Lovely to see you again, another chimed, though I did not recognize them. The steward led me past. Families, couples, polished tables, and finally to a small area separated by a velvet rope. A round table sat beneath a chandelier set for one, but with space for company. This is your seat, the steward said. The captain will greet you later. Across the hall, I saw Liana standing with her friends, her hand frozen mid-gesture, her eyes locked on the table, then on me. The smile she'd been wearing faltered, then returned too quickly, as if stapled back into place. She walked over heels sharp against the floor. "Mom," she said through clenched teeth. "Why are you sitting here?" "The steward brought me," I said. "I did not choose it." "That cannot be right." She forced a laugh as a couple passed. "You should sit with us." "You always sit with us." Before I could respond, the steward stepped forward politely. "I am sorry this table is reserved. The captain approved the placement personally." "I am her daughter," she snapped. "Yes, ma'am," he said, "but this seat is still reserved." Her mouth twitched. "But she's alone." "Not necessarily," he replied with a calmness that startled even me. Liana stared at him, then at the table, then at me, each glance sharper than the last. One of her friends called from across the room, "Liana, over here?" Liana forced a smile and waved, but did not move. "Mom," she said quietly. "People are watching." "I know," I said. Michael arrived, then pausing behind her. He looked from her to me, reading everything in the silence between us. "Mom looks great," he said gently. "Let her sit where she wants." "She does not want to sit here," Liana argued. "She just doesn't understand what this looks like." "I understand perfectly," I said. She blinked, taken aback. "You do," I nodded, "and I am fine." Her composure slipped. The mask she always wore, elegant, curated, superior, shifted, revealing the fear underneath. Not fear of me, fear of what others might think. A group of passengers walked by and greeted me warmly. "Good evening, Mrs. Marlowe. So glad to see you tonight. If you need anything, just ask." Each greeting sliced another line through Liana's confidence. She stepped back a little, her voice barely above a whisper. "What did you do to deserve this?" "Nothing," I said. "And everything?" Michael placed a hand on her shoulder. "Come on, Liana. Let's take our seats." She hesitated, searching my face for something: permission, apology, reassurance. I offered none. I simply sat, lifted my napkin, and thanked the steward as he poured my water. Liana finally turned away, her expression cracking at the edges. She walked back to her friends, who tried to smooth her embarrassment with light chatter, but her posture was stiff, her smile strained. She kept glancing toward my table, the tension radiating across the room like heat. Michael looked back at me before sitting beside her. His eyes held quiet understanding and something else. Something he had been waiting to say. As the first course arrived, I realized Liana's fear was not about losing control of the trip. It was about losing control of me. The storm warnings began just after breakfast. A low tremor shuddered through the ship, followed by an announcement asking passengers to remain indoors until further notice. Crew members moved quickly through the corridors, guiding families toward the common areas on Deck 9. I joined the steady stream of people heading to the lounge. The hum of tense chatter filled the air. Michael found me first. "You all right, Mama?" he asked. "I am fine," I said. "Just a bit unsteady." He offered his arm, and I took it. We were halfway across the lounge when Liana appeared, her face flushed, her expression tight. "There you are," she snapped. "Why did you wander off? I have been trying to find you for 20 minutes. "I was not wandering," I said. "I was following the crew's instructions." "Well, now everyone is stuck inside," she said loudly, glancing around at the gathering crowd. "This is why I told you to stay close. You always make things complicated." Michael stiffened beside me. "She did not cause a storm, Liana." Liana ignored him. She turned toward a nearby couple and said, My mother gets anxious during weather changes. I told her to stay with us, but she just walks off and does her own thing." The couple looked uncomfortable. I felt something inside me tighten, a familiar ache I knew too well. "I am not anxious," I said quietly. Liana rolled her eyes. "Mom, please. You have been nervous since we boarded. You were practically shaking at dinner last night." A few heads turned. Her voice carried more than she intended. Or maybe exactly as much as she intended. Michael stepped in front of her. "That is not true, and you need to stop saying things like that." "Oh, so now you are defending her," she said, her voice sharp. "You two act like I am the villain for trying to keep this family together. You are not trying to keep us together," he said. "You are trying to control her." The storm outside groaned against the hull, one long, heavy surge that set the lights flickering. The room quieted, people glancing upward with unease. Liana pointed at me, her voice rising. "She is the reason this trip is falling apart. First the cabin mess, then the dinner fiasco, and now this." A voice cut through her words. "Ms. Marlowe," Captain Rafael Ortiz stepped between us, posture, composed voice, calm but firm. "This storm has nothing to do with your mother," he said. Liana blinked. I did not say." "You implied," he said. Loudly. A murmur spread through the lounge. He continued, "Your mother has followed all safety instructions. She has not endangered anyone, nor has she disrupted the crew. She has been respectful and cooperative." Liana's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Captain Ortiz turned slightly, addressing the surrounding passengers as well as her. "Mrs. Marlowe has been gracious from the moment she boarded. She is not responsible for weather patterns or operational delays." A few people laughed softly, not at me, but at the absurdity of her accusation. One woman nearby leaned toward me and whispered, "You are doing just fine, sweetheart." Another stranger added, "Some people just like having someone to blame." Their voices were gentle, supportive. I felt my chest warm with something fragile and unfamiliar being defended. Liana's face drained of color. She looked at the passengers, at Michael, then back at me, her expression shifting into a strange mix of shock and dread. I did not mean she tried again. Michael shook his head. "Stop. Just stop." Captain Ortiz gave a polite nod. "Miss Marlowe, if you need assistance calming your nerves, our staff can help. But you will not direct that frustration toward your mother." Her lips parted in a small, unsteady breath. For the first time all trip, she looked like she might be the one about to unravel. The captain moved on to assist other passengers. Michael stayed at my side, steady and quiet. Liana remained frozen for several seconds before finally turning away, her shoulders rigid, her hands trembling at her sides. Whatever facade she had been wearing since the day we boarded, perfect daughter, perfect planner, perfect hostess, had cracked in front of everyone. And the fear in her eyes was unmistakable. Something far deeper than the storm had just broken loose. When the storm finally eased, passengers drifted back to their cabins in small groups. The ship creaked under the weight of calming waves, but the tension in my chest hadn't settled. Michael walked beside me in silence, his hands in his pockets, his eyes fixed on the carpeted floor as if searching for the right words there. "Mom," he said quietly, "can we sit for a minute?" He guided me to a small alcove near the stairwell, away from the other passengers. The lounge lighting cast faint shadows across his face, making him look older, tired. He sat first, then waited until I eased down beside him. "There is something I should have told you earlier," he said. I thought maybe it was not my place. But after what happened today, I cannot keep quiet." My stomach tightened. "Michael, whatever it is, just say it." He rubbed his palms against his knees, gathering himself. "Liana has been looking through your financial accounts." I blinked. "What? She has been calling your bank, pretending she is helping you manage things. She told them she was organizing your long-term planning. She said you were overwhelmed. A slow, painful heat crept up my neck. She told me she only wanted to understand my expenses, I whispered. She said it was for the cruise budget. She was not checking your vacation money, he said. She has been checking everything. The words felt like stones being placed gently, one by one, on top of me. She also met with a realtor, he continued. She told him you were considering selling the Charleston house. She asked him to start an informal appraisal. My breath caught. That house, 40 years of repairs memories, birthdays, scraped knees, late-night arguments, morning sunlight scattered across the kitchen tiles. It was the last real thing I had left of my life with their father. I never said I wanted to sell. I said, my voice thin. She knows that he said. She planned to pressure you after the cruise when you were relaxed and in a good mood. She said it would be the perfect time to get you to sign papers. I covered my mouth with my hand. The air tasted metallic. Michael leaned closer. I tried to stop her. I told her it was wrong. She said she was protecting the family. She said you would thank her later. A quiet tremor passed through me. Not from the storm, but from something deeper. She thinks I cannot manage my own life, I murmured. She thinks she has the right to manage it for you, he said. That is worse. Tears slipped down my cheeks before I felt them. I brushed them away quickly. Not wanting to fall apart here, not after everything. Michael placed his hand over mine. I am here, he said softly, and I am on your side. I nodded, though my chest ached, as if someone had reached inside and pulled something loose. She had no right, I whispered. No, he said. She did not. For a long moment, we sat without speaking. Something heavy settled between us. Not hopelessness, but clarity, the kind that arrives quietly and refuses to be ignored. I looked down at my trembling hands. Liana had not just been preparing for this trip. She had been preparing to take my life apart piece by piece while smiling at me as if nothing were wrong. When I finally stood, the tremor in my legs wasn't from age. It was from the weight of understanding, settling into place sharp and undeniable. My daughter had not simply tried to control a vacation. She had been preparing to erase me. Liana found me the next morning outside the Atrium Cafe, her steps quick and uneven, her eyes red-rimmed as if she had barely slept. The storm had passed overnight, leaving the ship steady again, but the tension in her expression made it clear the worst weather wasn't outside anymore. Mom, we need to talk, she said, blocking my path. I closed the book I had been pretending to read. All right. She smoothed her blouse, lifted her chin, and spoke with a brittle confidence. Michael told you something, didn't he? I can tell. You look dramatic. Dramatic, I repeated quietly. She folded her arms. I know how Michael is. He exaggerates. You should not take everything he says as the truth. He told me you have been checking my accounts. Her eyes flickered. Only because you forget things sometimes. I am trying to keep you from getting overwhelmed. I have never asked for your help with my accounts. She pressed her lips together, then forced a sympathetic tone. Mom, you are 72. Managing finances at your age is difficult. You may think you are handling everything, but you get confused sometimes. I am just being proactive. I steadied my breath. I am not confused, and I am not overwhelmed. I am capable. She sighed, exasperated. This is exactly why I did not want to tell you. You get emotional, and then you resist help that you desperately need. The condescension, the familiar practiced tilt of her voice cut sharper than any insult. I know what you told the bank, I said, and I know about the realtor. Her face drained of color. Michael should have kept his mouth closed. Why, I asked, so you could push me into selling my home without my consent. I was protecting our family's future, she snapped. That house is old. It needs repairs. You live alone. It is not practical anymore. It is my home, I said, not yours to move like a piece on a board. She stared at me, stunned by the firmness in my voice. Mom, she said slowly, you do not understand how the world works at your age. You need guidance. You need someone to make decisions for you. If you would just trust me, I trusted you, I said, steady and calm, and you used that trust to undermine me. Her mouth opened, then closed. She tried again. I was trying to do what is best, for whom I asked. She flinched as if I had struck her. Voices drifted from nearby tables as passengers passed through the cafe. Some nodded at me politely, still remembering the storm scene from the day before. One woman even smiled and waved. Liana noticed. Her shoulders tightened. She lowered her voice. Do not make a scene. I am not making one, I said. You already did that yesterday. Color rose sharply in her cheeks. I was upset, she hissed. Everyone was staring. Everything went wrong and you were sitting at that special table like you were someone important. The words slipped before she could stop them. I held her gaze. I am important. She froze. The ship swayed gently, barely noticeable, but the shift between us was unmistakable. Solid and irreversible. You cannot talk to me like that, she whispered. I can talk to you honestly, I said. Something neither of us has done in years. She stepped back, breath uneven. You are twisting everything. You always turn me into the bad one. I am telling the truth, I replied. If that makes you uncomfortable, that is not my burden to carry. Her eyes shimmered, not with tears, but with panic. For the first time I saw it fully. She was not angry. She was unraveling. She reached for her composure, grasping at pieces that no longer fit together. Mom, she whispered, voice trembling. Stop, please. But I could not step backward anymore. Not after decades of shrinking. The storm outside had passed, but the one between us was only beginning, and for once, she was the one caught in the center with no shelter left. I walked past her, leaving her standing in the cafe doorway, her breath hitching, her confidence cracking her veneer, fading faster than she could catch it. By the time evening fell, the storm was gone, but the air on the ship felt charged in a different way, tense, expectant, like everyone sensed something was about to be revealed. The announcement for the captain's mid-voyage address rang through the corridors, inviting passengers to gather in the central lounge. Michael walked beside me, steady as always. You do not have to go, he said quietly. I know, I replied, but I want to. When we entered the lounge, the crowd parted slightly, as if they remembered the morning's confrontation and were still whispering about it. I saw Liana across the room, surrounded by her friends, yet somehow standing alone. She looked brittle, exhausted. Her smile stretched too thin. A hush fell when Captain Rafael Ortiz stepped onto the small stage. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice calm and firm. I want to thank you for your patience during the storm. Tonight I also have a special acknowledgement to make. Liana stiffened the moment his eyes drifted toward me. This ship, he continued, takes pride in honoring not only our crew, but the people who have made a difference in their lives long before they ever worked at sea. His words rolled gently through the room, gathering momentum. Many years ago, a young woman in Charleston faced a wrongful accusation at work. She was minutes away from losing her job. Only one person, someone who had nothing to gain, stepped forward to advocate for her, gather missing documents, and help her prove the truth. My heart thudded. I remembered that day. A frightened young woman clutching papers with trembling hands, a supervisor yelling a system ready to discard her. That woman, the captain said, is now one of the senior executives of this cruise line. A ripple of murmurs swept across the passengers. And the person who saved her career, he said, turning fully toward me, is Mrs. Evelyn Marlowe. I froze. Liana's friends turned as one, staring at me with wide eyes. The captain continued. When Executive Director Teresa Vaughn learned Mrs. Marlowe would be on this voyage, She issued direct orders to provide her with the highest honors and accommodations. Our company owed her a long overdue apology and recognition. Applause began softly, then grew louder, spreading through the room until the entire lounge was filled with it. My face warmed. I wasn't used to being seen, much less celebrated. Liana's cheeks went pale. Her lips parted, then pressed together as if she were trying to hold her face in place so it wouldn't fall apart in front of everyone. One of her friends whispered, "That's your mother," another said. "Why didn't you say she did something like that?" Liana exhaled shakily, unable to answer. Captain Ortiz stepped down from the stage and approached me directly. "Mrs. Marlowe." "Thank you," he said, bowing his head slightly. "Our company and Ms. Vaughn personally will always be grateful." Before I could reply, passengers began offering soft congratulations. "You must be proud. What a beautiful thing you did. You deserve the recognition." I nodded, overwhelmed but steady. Liana pushed her way through the crowd until she stood right in front of me. Her voice was low, trembling. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Would it have mattered?" I asked. Her throat worked, searching for words that wouldn't come. "You let everyone think. You let them believe I let the truth speak for itself," I said. Her eyes glistened, not with sadness, but with fear. Fear of being exposed. Fear of losing control of the narrative she'd built so carefully. Fear of the world seeing that she wasn't the generous, flawless daughter she pretended to be. Behind her, her friends watched silently. They weren't cruel. They were simply seeing her clearly for the first time. Michael stepped beside me. "Come on, Mama," he said gently. "Let's get a seat." I nodded and walked away with him. Liana remained standing in the middle of the room, her hands shaking slightly, her mask slipping with every breath she fought to steady. The applause faded. The murmurs softened, and the truth hung in the air, bright, undeniable, and finally free. I woke early the next morning with a heaviness in my chest that had nothing to do with age. The applause from the night before still echoed faintly in my mind. But so did Michael's warning and the hollow panic I'd seen in Liana's eyes. Truth had cracked open the surface of our family, and what lay underneath was not pretty. After breakfast, I made my way to the ship's business center, small, quiet, and tucked behind a row of meeting rooms. A crew member greeted me politely and pointed me toward an empty workstation. "Take your time, ma'am. If you need printing or scanning, just ask." I sat down and opened my email. My hands hesitated only once before I began typing a message to my attorney in Charleston, a woman named Ruth Adams, who had handled my will after my husband died. "Ruth, I need to schedule an urgent conversation. It concerns my daughter accessing my accounts without consent." The words came faster than I expected. Years of silence had left so much waiting to be said. When I pressed send, a wave of dizziness washed over me, not from fear, but from relief. I had taken the first step. A reply arrived less than 10 minutes later. "Call me. Now," I dialed. Ruth answered immediately. "Evelyn, are you safe?" she asked. "Yes," I said. But I discovered things I cannot ignore. I explained everything the bank calls the realtor, the lies about my memory, the attempt to isolate me financially. Ruth listened without interrupting. When I finished, her voice held a calm edge. "You need protection," she said. "Real legal protection. I'll prepare documents, restricted access orders, power of attorney revocation property safeguards. I'll email drafts to you today. Do you have access to a printer?" "I do." "Good. Print them, sign them, scan them back to me. We'll notarize everything the moment you return to Charleston." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "And Evelyn," she added, "you are not overreacting. What your daughter did is serious. You're making the right decisions." After the call, I printed the documents. Some were straightforward, revoking permissions, locking accounts. Others made my stomach twist affidavits detailing breaches of trust timelines of suspicious activity. One document listed every unusual transaction linked to my accounts over the last 12 months. My breath caught when I saw the numbers. Hotel charges in Savannah. Unexplained purchases labeled consultation fees. A transfer request marked family planning never completed but attempted. I stared at the page until the edges blurred. My daughter had been planning this long before the cruise. "Mom," Michael's voice came softly from behind me. He stepped closer, saw the papers spread across the desk, and exhaled slowly. "So, you know everything now," he said. I nodded. He pulled up a chair. "I want to help you, if that's all right." "You already have," I whispered. "No," he said, shaking his head. "Not enough. I let her do too much." "I should have told you sooner." I reached for his hand. "You told me when it mattered." He swallowed, eyes brightening. "Let me handle your accounts from now on. Not control them, just help protect them. We can set up alerts, put limits in place, make sure no one touches what's yours." My throat tightened. "Would you really do that?" "Of course," he said. "You have taken care of everyone your whole life. Let me take care of you for once." A small, fragile warmth spread through me. I was 72 years old, and yet this felt like the first time someone had stood between me and the storm. I turned back to the documents, picked up the pen, and signed the first page with a steady hand. Not because I was angry, because I was finally choosing myself. I returned to my suite with the folder of printed documents tucked against my chest, the weight of them settling into me like something I had carried for decades without realizing it. The ocean outside the balcony moved in slow, rolling waves, steady, patient, nothing like the storm that had churned the day before. I sat at the table and spread the papers out again, not to review them, but to let myself see the truth laid out plainly. Revocation forms. Beneficiary updates. A trust for the Charleston home. New layers of protection I should have created years ago. For the first time in a long while, I did not feel fragile. A soft knock sounded. Michael stepped in quietly, carrying 2 cups of tea. He set one in front of me. "You do not have to rush," he said. "We can wait until we dock." "I do not want to wait," I replied. "I have waited long enough." He nodded, pulling out a chair beside me. "Ruth sent more documents. She said once these are signed, no one, not even a family member, can access your records without written consent." I lifted the next page. "This one puts the house fully into a protective trust." "Your name stays primary," he said. "Mine becomes the executor only if something happens to you. That way, Liana cannot force any decisions." I held the pen for a moment, feeling the cool metal between my fingers. "I bought that house with cash from your father's life insurance," I said softly. "Brick by brick. Every room has his hands in it. That home survived hurricanes, recessions, broken appliances, and me raising 2 children alone." Michael swallowed, his expression tightening. "Whatever happens, it should stay yours." "It always should have," I murmured. I signed the document slowly, each stroke of my name steady and sure. When I finished, I felt lighter, like something had unlatched inside my ribs. Michael gathered the pages to scan later. As he organized them, he paused, looking at me with a seriousness that softened into pride. "You know," he said, "Liana always acted like you were the weakest one in this family, but you are the strongest person I have ever known." The words caught me off guard. I never felt strong. "You were," he insisted, "holding everything together for so long. You made it look easy." And Liana mistook that for weakness. I let out a slow breath. "Maybe I let her." He shook his head. "You survived things she could never imagine. She tried to control you because she could not measure up." I looked out toward the horizon. The sun dipped low, turning the water gold. Something inside me settled, a quiet acceptance I had not known I was waiting for. "I spent years shrinking myself," I said. Years letting her tell me who I was. And now he asked. And now I said I am choosing not to disappear. Michael placed a hand over mine. You are not disappearing. You are finally showing up. We sat quietly for several minutes, the sound of the waves filling the space between us. My suite was still luxurious, still far too grand for someone who spent most of her life in modest kitchens and quiet evenings. But for the first time, I felt like I belonged in it, not because of status or privilege, but because respect had found its way to me at last. When Michael left to scan the signed pages, I walked to the balcony. The wind brushed against my face, warm and soft, almost like a hand steadying me. I closed my eyes and let the moment settle, let myself breathe in the reality I had built a life reclaimed, a home protected, a future no one else could rewrite. I knew what I had to do once we reached Charleston. The papers were only the beginning. The real courage, the kind I had spent decades avoiding, was finally rising in me, quiet and undeniable. I found her waiting for me near the railing on deck 12, pacing in short, frantic strides. The wind tugged at her hair, but she didn't notice. The moment she saw me, she straightened her blouse and forced a soft, trembling smile. "Mom," she said quickly, voice too bright, "we need to fix this. People are talking. They think I'm being unfair. You should tell them the truth. Tell them you misunderstood everything." Her words rushed out like she was drowning. "There is nothing to fix," I said. She blinked. "Of course there is. You made this bigger than it needed to be. I have been trying so hard to help you. But you get confused, and then people assume the worst." "I am not confused," I said. "Not anymore." Her face stiffened. "I know about the accounts," I continued. "The realtor. The pressure you planned for after the cruise. I know everything." She swallowed hard. "Michael should have kept his mouth shut. He blew everything out of proportion." "This is not about Michael," I said. "This is about you, and what you were willing to do to me." She stepped closer, lowering her voice even more. "Mom, listen. I was trying to protect us. The house is too much for you to manage. You could forget something important. A bill, a repair, who knows? I have to think ahead." "No," I said. "You wanted control, not responsibility." Her breath hitched. She tried to hold my gaze, but her confidence faltered. "You're twisting everything," she whispered. "You're making me the bad person." "I am telling the truth," I said. For the first time in a long time. Anger flashed through her expression. Hot, immediate, frightened. "After everything I do for you, this is how you thank me. You tried to shrink me for years," I said. "And I am done being small for you." Her whole body tensed like a string pulled too tight. "I am your daughter. You owe me more than this." "I owe you honesty," I said. "And boundaries." Her breath came in sharp bursts. "You cannot do this. You cannot cut me out." Behind her, Michael stepped forward from near the stairwell. He had been watching quietly, giving me the space to speak. His voice was soft but unwavering. "She is not cutting you out," he said. "She is finally protecting herself." Liana spun toward him. "You are supposed to support me. I will support you," he said. "But I will not support the way you have treated Mom." Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words, only panic. "You both hate me," she said, voice breaking. "We do not hate you," I said. "But we cannot let you keep hurting us." She looked at me, then really looked past the polished clothes, past the forced smiles, past the years she spent pretending she wasn't afraid of losing control. Her eyes glistened, her hands shaking. "Mom," she whispered, "please don't do this." "I am not doing anything to you," I said gently. "I am finally doing something for myself." Her shoulders collapsed inward. A small, fragile sound escaped her throat. Anger, grief, disbelief tangled together. Michael stepped beside me, placing a steady hand on my back. I felt myself exhale long and quiet. The wind moved around us. The ship hummed beneath our feet. And for the first time in my life, my daughter looked at me, not with arrogance or irritation, but with fear. Charleston's shoreline came into view just after sunrise, pale gold light spilling over the marsh as the ship eased toward the port. I stood at the railing with Michael beside me, the wind brushing against my face. For the first time in a long time, the air felt light, almost forgiving. When the ship finally docked, passengers hurried off with luggage and chatter. Liana lingered behind them, moving slowly, her shoulders hunched. She looked smaller, not physically, but in the way a person shrinks when their certainty slips through their fingers. She didn't speak to me, and I didn't chase her. Michael drove me straight from the port to the courthouse downtown. The streets were familiar cobblestones, old brick buildings, giant oaks bending overhead, but they felt different now, as if the city had been waiting for me to reclaim something. Judge Whitaker welcomed me into his office with a warm nod. Mrs. Marlowe Ruth briefed me. "You did the right thing coming here." My hands trembled when I placed the folder of printed documents on his desk. "I want everything official," I said. "No access. No permissions. Not anymore." He examined the paperwork carefully, the power of attorney revocation, the trust for the house, the account protections. Then he lifted the last set of documents, the detailed record of the attempted realtor consultations, the unauthorized bank inquiries, the signatures that didn't look quite like mine. "Mrs. Marlowe," he said softly, "these are serious breaches. We will file formal complaints today, and the bank will be notified before nightfall." I nodded steady. "Do it." He tapped the papers. "Your accounts will be locked down. Only you and your chosen representative will have access." "Michael," I said. "I choose Michael." My son placed a reassuring hand on my back. "I'm here, Mama." Judge Whitaker continued. "As for your daughter, she may face penalties for the forged signatures and attempted property interference. But that is not your burden anymore." A long breath left my chest, slow, heavy, and freeing. When we walked out of the courthouse, the sun had risen higher, warming the stone steps beneath my feet. Liana's car sat across the street. She was inside, staring at us through the windshield. Even from a distance, I saw the moment she realized what I had done, what I had taken back. She stepped out, her face pale, her voice barely audible. "Mom, please," I held up a hand. "No more." Her mouth trembled. "You're really doing this?" "Yes," I said. "You left me no choice." She took one step toward me, desperate. But something in my posture, something new, something stronger, stopped her cold. Her eyes filled not with sorrow, but with the awareness that her power had slipped completely out of reach. Michael opened the car door for me. I got in without looking back. As we pulled away, I rested my hand against the window. The courthouse shrank in the distance, and so did the version of me who once believed silence was strength. This was not the ending of a family. It was the beginning of my freedom. The weeks after the cruise were quieter than I expected. Not empty quiet in the way a room feels after a long storm finally loses its strength. I spent most mornings on my porch, watching the light settle across the marsh the way it always had. Only now it felt as if the light finally saw me too. It didn't take long for the consequences to reach Liana. Her access to my accounts disappeared overnight. The bank notified her formally. The realtor withdrew all interest in the house once he learned she had no authority to request an appraisal. And the charity she'd contacted using my name issued a public statement clarifying that she had never been permitted to represent them in any financial capacity. Charleston's social circles moved quickly after that. Whispers spread. People she once tried so hard to impress suddenly kept their distance. When manipulation loses its polish, people tend to remember what it was made of. One afternoon, she showed up at my door. She didn't knock loudly. She didn't storm in. She just stood there, shoulders hunched, as if she wasn't sure she deserved to be seen. "Mom," she said, "please, can we talk?" I stepped aside, letting her into the living room. She kept her gaze on the floor. They said I might have to meet with a lawyer, she whispered. Something about unauthorized access and forged signatures. I never meant for it to get this far. I know what you meant, I said gently. And what you didn't. Her breath shook. I thought I was doing the right thing. You never act like you need help. You never say anything. I thought if I took charge, maybe I could finally get our lives in order. That was not your place, I replied. And it never was. She wiped her cheeks impatient with her own emotion. I need your help, Mom. I need you to talk to someone. Fix this. You always fix everything. I shook my head slowly. Not this time. Her eyes widened. You're serious? Yes, I said. I am. She sank onto the couch, her voice cracking. I am scared. You should be, I said softly. But not because of me. Because of what you chose to do. She looked at me with a desperation that made her appear much younger than her years. So you won't help me at all. I will always want the best for you, I said. But you need help that cannot come from me. The words landed heavily between us. She stared at me for several long seconds, confusion hurt, and something like understanding flickering across her face. Then she stood. She didn't argue. She didn't shout. She just nodded, once the kind of nod a person gives when they realize a door they've been pushing on will never open again. After she left the house, felt still but not empty. My life had been built around surviving her storms. Now it felt like the world was finally giving me permission to build something else. Michael came over often. Ruby brought homemade soup when she heard what had happened. Harold started helping me repair small things around the house hinges, a loose step, a stubborn window. My circle was not large, but it was honest, and that was enough. One morning I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and opened my laptop. A familiar cruise line banner filled the screen. I took a breath, clicked Book Now, and reserved a 10-day voyage to the Bahamas. A single traveler. One guest. No performances. No shrinking. Just me. When the confirmation email arrived, a warmth spread through my chest. Not victory. Not vengeance. Something simpler. Freedom. As I closed my laptop, I thought of Captain Ortiz calling my name on that crowded deck, his voice carrying above everything else. Maybe the real miracle wasn't the captain calling my name, but that I finally learned how to answer it myself. If this story moved you, tap like, drop a comment, or subscribe for more real-life journeys of strength and healing.